The Kansas City Chiefs have been a powerhouse in the NFL over the past few years. After winning a Super Bowl in 2020 and reaching a Super Bowl again the year after, a majority of us expected the Chiefs to pretty much dominate the league for years to come. Now, after failing to reach it last year after blowing a massive lead in the AFC Championship to the Bengals, things still looked relatively good in Kansas City until this offseason started. Now, before I get into this video, feel free to like, subscribe, let me know what type of videos you want, and just stick around the channel because I have a lot of things coming after this little short break that I've had recently. But anyway, losing the likes of Tyreek Hill, Charvarius Ward, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, Tyrann Mathieu, Jarran Reed, and Mike Hughes. These are some of the most impactful role players, along with superstars and Tyreek and Tyrann Mathieu. And it's honestly hard to imagine a Chiefs team being super successful without the likes of the players that I just mentioned. And I know I'm being a bit generous, but it's mainly Tyreek and Tyrann Mathieu. But it's just losing those role players, like I stated, it's weird because they were some of the most impactful players. And I know they're being replaced by like a solid group of guys, as far as the receivers go. But I don't know, it's just, I feel like the team, as they were, meshed so well. And obviously bringing in the group of guys that they did in Juju, MBS, Ronald Jones, Justin Reed, and all those other pieces, I know that these guys are going to be super impactful because they're great players. But mainly, Tyreek Hill, I can't understate how important and how impactful he is because of the dynamic he brought to this team's offense. And the guys that I just said, they don't bring that to the table. I'm going to be coming back a lot and mentioning Tyreek a lot because he's unique. He is probably the most dynamic player in the league. And losing the rest of the guys that they did, like in Tyrann Mathieu, Charvarius Ward, Jarran Reed, and Mike Hughes, these guys were damn near the most impactful defensive players that aren't named Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, and L'Jarius Sneed. And honestly, I hope they have a type of plan to fill in these gaps because the way that the AFC and the AFC West are just stacking up, loading up, I just honestly can't put as much faith and trust in the Chiefs to be just that dominant team again like they have been the past few years. And obviously you can't count out Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But with how teams like the Raiders, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Browns have gotten so much stronger, and all of those teams but the Raiders missed the playoffs, there's only a certain few spots that teams can fill to make the playoffs. And I feel like Kansas is taking a step back while damn near the whole AFC is taking a step forward. So it's just like, I don't know how much trust I have with what they're doing so far. It's honestly just going to make this year so much more unpredictable than it has been in the past few years. And I get it, bringing in Juju and MVS is definitely a good move because they're two good players. And in some cases, two good players can make up for the loss of one superstar. And you got to take into account Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. Like, again, back to Tyreek, he alone made the offense so deadly with his speed and ability to torch any and everybody, no matter who their name is. Like, we seen it in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl against Kansas. Like, their offense was essentially non-existent because they took Tyreek out of the game. Shit, we even seen it at the start of the year where teams were doubling Tyreek over the top and forcing the Chiefs to use anybody else because they felt like Patrick was going to force feed Tyreek, and that's literally what happened. And they were struggling to start the year. And again, mentioning that Super Bowl, we saw how doubling Tyreek and abusing the Chiefs' offensive line, we've seen that they can make the right moves, and they're definitely capable of overhauling their team, like we seen last offseason. But I don't know because Tyreek. It's Tyreek Hill. And bringing in Justin Reed, I fucking love this move. Justin brings in the same dynamic as Tyrann Mathieu, pretty much. And honestly, in my opinion, he brings more. Now, I get Texan fans are going to bring up his shoulder injury and how he hasn't been the same and his tackling percentage and whatever. But you got to think about, he hasn't looked as good because the defense around him hasn't been as great. Now he's going to be in a competent team with a pretty good coordinator in Spagnuolo, however you say his name. It's pretty much they brought in a younger Tyrann Mathieu on a cheaper deal. And as for all the other guys that they signed, like Austin Reiter, coming to be the backup, Deion Bush, Jermaine Carter. Honestly, I've got nothing to say. I don't really know much about them. But yeah, decent guys, friendly deals, I guess. I couldn't tell you much about them. And the final guy that they brought in that I forgot to mention is Ronald Jones. He's been one of my favorite backs in the league for a while now. I don't know why, but pairing him with Clyde, and hopefully they bring back Jerick McKinnon, because I loved him on this team. He was honestly the best back at times. But Ronald can literally be a starting running back on some teams in this league. And having him and pairing him with Clyde, it's so great because it brings like an extra bit of oomph to the offense. Don't know why I said that, but yeah, you could see him take a majority of the snaps. I don't know, you could split the snaps or whatever, but I feel like it's a great move to help take the load off Clyde, and I just love that move so much because he's one of my favorite players. And with losing Tyreek, I know that they got a few picks in this year's draft and like a late round or two for next year. Kansas is typically a good team when it comes to drafting, and I feel like this year they need to target a receiver and a DB with their first-round picks. Now, personally, if Jameson Williams is available, I would take him, but I don't know how likely that is. If not, Christian Watson, he's definitely my second best bet at receiver, because these two guys have so much speed, and I guess you could kind of replicate what Tyreek brings to the table with these two guys. Now, with that being said, I know bringing in one of those two is not the same as having Tyreek, but they need to bring someone like that to the table. Otherwise, I feel like the dynamic of speed in their team, which kind of was their offense, is gone. And it's going to make them somewhat easier to defend. And as for their second first, I'm not really fussed on who they take, as long as it's a DB or an edge rusher, because the Chiefs, they don't struggle to get pressure. They struggle to get sacks. They've been in like the back end of the league stat-wise when it comes to sacks. They're pretty decent when it comes to pressure, but they need someone that can help Chris Jones. Like, Melvin Gordon was good, but they're likely not going to bring him back. This year, I think this draft is full of pretty good edge rushers and pretty good DBs. Now, I don't know who's going to be available. I don't know much about these guys, but if David Ajabo, I think, since he tore his Achilles, he might be slipping. And if he ends up in Kansas City with a competent coaching staff, you never know. It might be a jackpot. But honestly, I'm not really fussing who they take with their second first. But as long as they get a receiver with a lot of speed and someone on defense with their first two picks, I feel like it's a successful draft for Kansas. Now, with all that being said, Kansas City is still likely to be the favorite in the NFC, purely because they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, who are probably the best at their job in the NFL. They've proven time and time again that no matter how bleak things are, they can turn the season around just like that. And after starting last season so poorly, they turned it around and they ended up opening a cannibal pass on the rest of the league. Yes, they fell short of the Super Bowl, but that happens. You can expect the unexpected in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are always going to be a dominant team no matter what. But it's only a matter of time before the reign of terror on the league is over. And with that being said, I'll catch you next time.